Welcome to the Time to Practice podcast. This is a space where we talk about music practice, the ups and downs that young musicians go through related to practice and learning music, and how we as parents, caregivers, and music educators can support the young musicians in our lives, support ourselves, and support each other. My name is Christine Goodner. I'm a music educator, author, and podcaster who has made it my mission to talk about music practice and to support educators and families looking to make home practice more effective and to reduce conflict and frustration in the practice room. I'm glad you're here. This episode is brought to you by two upcoming events, which I will mention quickly here and that you can find more information about on my website, suzukitriangle.com. The first is meant for parents and families supporting young musicians. It is a book club that we're going to have online based on the Beyond the Music Lesson book. And it's my big thank you gift for my newsletter subscribers. So don't worry if you're not a subscriber yet. You can find the link to sign up to attend and be added in the show notes or on the homepage of my website. If and when you become a member of the newsletter, this is a no-cost event that is my thank you to you. And then second, I have an event for teachers coming up in the new year. I will be offering my enrichment course, Setting Families Up for Success, one more time this school year. We will meet every other Friday starting January 9th online, and you can sign up for that on the SAA website and also find a link on my website as well. So please reach out if you have any questions. I'd love to have you join me for either or both of those events. Welcome, everyone. I'm here this week, the week of Thanksgiving here in the US, when I'm recording this and sharing it with you to share 3 practice tips from musicians, music educators that have come on the podcast actually earlier this calendar year. And typically, when I do a longer interview podcast, at the end of our conversation, I'll ask each guest to share a practice tip that listeners can use at home this week or something they're thinking about in their own practice right now. I think hearing experts share a piece of advice that most helps them or their students, at least at the time of our recording, is such priceless advice to get to hear. I always enjoy revisiting them, even when it's not the first time I've listened to these pieces of practice advice. So I'm excited to revisit 3 practice tips today and share with you just a little snippet of their advice for us on their episode. If you heard them the first time around and this is a reminder or these are new ideas to you, I think you'll find them inspiring and good food for thought for practice for you as we go into this busy holiday season. Our first tip was shared by cellist and composer Bianca de Avila do Prado in episode 69. Bianca is on the faculty at the Music Institute of Chicago. She's an online instructor for the University of Idaho Preparatory Division and also coordinator of the MIC Third Coast Suzuki Strings, a tuition-free outreach program for the community in Evanston, Illinois. One of her new orchestra arrangements for string orchestra was just selected for the J.W. Pepper Sheet Music Editor's Choice List, which is a huge credit to her work. There are many accolades I could share about her teaching and compositions, but today I'm thrilled to share her practice tip, all about how she sees her own practice time as a form of self-care. Well, I wonder if we think about, the current day. I'm sure you're doing your own practice in addition to your composing. What would you say you're thinking about in your own practice these days? What's something that keeps you motivated currently?
So you asked me about that, and I kept thinking this week, and I think that's really what came very strong to me because it's part of my life right now at this moment. Is just like, especially for teachers, have practice as part of your self-care routine. It is so important to be in touch with your instrument, and it's so easy to like you never miss a lesson you need to teach, you never miss an appointment you have, but it's so easy to miss your own practice. So my parents were here for 3 weeks, which was wonderful, but I was like totally devoted to be with them. And then when they left, I was, no, okay, now it's New Year, I need to start doing better for myself. I saw my mom as a very good example. Like she works out and exercises. I was not doing anything. I'm turning 40 next year, so I need to start taking care of myself. And so I started, okay, I will wake up really early in the morning. I will take a walk. I saw your walking pictures this morning. They were so pretty. Yeah, it's delightful, the weather right now to go for walks. It's just so I've been going for walks and then I'll come home and practice. So I put that on my schedule as part of, so as the same as teaching, it's practice is there. My best to honor that time because it's super easy to honor everything else in your schedule, but not your practice time. And that's really the opportunity where you can check in with your body, nurture your beautiful tone, and get ready to be a good teacher, to be a good role model for your students. And so I think that's what it's been very strongly with me in this new school year. And it's easy. Another thing I did this year that I'm really proud of is that I scheduled some breaks on my teaching because last year I didn't have a full studio, so they kept giving more students, and then I kept filling the times, and by the end I didn't have time, like any breaks on my teaching. And so I also put on my schedule little breaks in between lessons. And so I think that's going to be a much smoother school year, even with a lot of students. I have a very full studio, but really trying to take care of myself and to keeping up with my own playing as well. Not just like practice, but really like getting to play my cello every day.
Yeah. I like that you called it self-care because I think sometimes we can think of it as work and it sits there on our schedule, but we're like, oh, here's this big thing that is going to be hard or frustrating or work. And I think if we think of it as like, oh, I'm taking care of myself through my practice, that gives it a different feel to me.
Yeah.
I like that.
Of course. And in the beginning, of course, it feels like, okay, I have to go. But I think as we encourage our students every week when we
Yeah.
teach them, if we keep doing and stick with it, it's going to be more and more pleasant with time because it's just part of what it is. You play your cello every day. So yeah, just trying to do yourself what you tell your students to do.
Yeah. And I think our mental attitude about it makes a big difference. There was a interview I did with Amy Beth Horman, who's a fabulous cello teacher, or excuse me, violin teacher, and she was talking about how every time she puts the violin on her shoulder, she thinks of like having gratitude for the time with her violin, and how she tells her students, if you don't feel like you can do that, then put it down and do something else related to your music, but only put your instrument, into the playing position with a feeling of like, oh, I'm grateful to be doing this.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. I love that. I think that switch is so helpful because sometimes, like you as a teenager, with okay, I'm gonna audition in a few, years for the cello scholarship or entrance into college. We can be very tense and very forcing.
Yeah.
And I think the long big picture of practicing is how do we feel grateful to have the time with our instrument,
Yes, absolutely.
and how do we foster that?
Yeah.
If we're parents, how do we foster that for our kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you to Bianca for sharing her thoughts with us on practice. I've been thinking a lot lately about how two things can be true for some people, especially some students. There will always be an aspect of effort or work to their practice sessions. That is just the reality for them. And also, we can look for ways to make practice more joyful, more full of gratitude, and see it as something that adds to our lives and gives us something back. I really love that perspective. And I don't think it has to be one or the other to feel valid for each individual. I will add a link to our full conversation with Bianca in the show notes, along with a link to her website where you can find information about her teaching work and her composition work as well. So, tip number 2 that I'm revisiting today and sharing with you comes from Meret Bitticks. Meret is a performer, a music educator at the Music Institute of Chicago, is on faculty at Lake Forest College and DePaul University. She's also a flute teacher trainer through the Suzuki Association of the Americas and author of a book on working with young flutists. In this clip, she shares with us her favorite tip, especially for advanced players relating to practice and the choices we make while practicing.
Oh my gosh, my all-time favorite practice tip comes from Kenny Werner's book, Effortless Mastery. And he talks about the practice triangle. And he says that there are three variables that make up the corner of the practice triangle: accuracy, speed, and length. And he says that when you are practicing, you can only work on two of the three variables. So with my students, Kenny Werner is a jazz musician. So his definition of accuracy is maybe different than my definition. But for me and my students, I tell my students that accuracy is a non-negotiable. So really the only two factors that they have to play around with is speed and length. Length meaning how much of what you're playing you play. So if you want to play it accurately and fast, you might only play 2 or 3 notes at a time. If you want to play a long chunk of whatever it is that you're working on, then the thing that must be changed will be the speed. So as you get closer to having something polished, then you don't have to make as many compromises on the speed and the length. But that to me was a real revelation that, oh, I can practice this at tempo. It just might mean that I am practicing a very small amount of it at tempo.
Hmm. Oh, I love that. That's a really interesting way to think about it. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, I find it especially helpful with some of my more advanced students.
Right. And it's easy to want to get everything improving at the same moment, which is not possible.
I should be able to play this page
Yeah.
at this tempo. Well, but you can't.
So how do we get there? Yeah.
So you need to play, right, you either slow the whole page down or you need to play part of the page
Mm.
at that
Oh,
tempo.
I love that. I love that tip. And listening to it again makes me want to go pick up that book, Effortless Mastery, and add it to my ever growing reading list. I was thinking that for younger practicers, it's often the speed, slowing things down specifically, and the length of a chunk of music that we choose to practice that we work on at the same time to make our practice more effective. So, if you're listening and have a young practicer, I would offer that idea as well to you this week if you're trying to think about how you can make that work with practice with your young child. So, a big thank you to Meret for coming on the podcast in episode 64. We will link to her full episode in the show notes as well as to her book for teaching young flutists. And finally, the third tip I want to share with you this week comes from episode 67 with Dr. Elizabeth Guerriero about motivation and maximum efficiency in music practice. And Elizabeth is a violinist, music educator, founder of Beth G Consulting, where she works with a lot of nonprofits. And she had a lot of wisdom to share in her episode about learning, about achievement, about music practice. And today we're going to hear a tip that she shared on the episode from herself and also one from one of her students. We always wrap up these conversations with a practice idea or tip that we could leave people with. It can be something we already talked about today or something totally different. But what can we leave listeners this week to think about with their own practice or with their children?
Well, I have actually 2 for you, I hope that's okay. So, the first I wanted to, share, it's less of a tip and more of a question. So, it's a question, to ask parents or to ask teachers, and the question is, "Are you having fun?" Because all of this should be fun. Well, maybe not all the time, right? But there should be a component of fun for parents, for children, for the teacher. And I think when we're talking about the internal and external motivators and the social and life circumstances and everything, that can be really powerful. That are we having fun doing this? If it feels not fun, let's go back and really evaluate and figure out some ways in which it can have a feeling of like really genuine fun, joy, those sorts of things. And so my question is just, are we having fun? Like real fun.
Mm.
So that's less of a tip, but kind of a tip as well. But then the other thing is I asked my student Mackenzie her advice. She's 10. Because I knew I was going to be on here. And she told me to, and I quote, tell listeners that quality is better than quantity. And this means going slow and being careful and mindful. And then she emphasized the word mindfulness. But she also wanted me to add that she recently got a bird, a pet parakeet named Ralph. And she's nicknamed him RJ. And he practices with her as a practice buddy and he chirps a lot.
Aw.
So, if as a practice tip, it may be helpful for everyone to get a parakeet and 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 practice with their parakeet, but the parakeet may chirp a lot during practice.
Oh, that's great advice. And I have my fuzzy black cat that comes in the room when I practice and likes to be close by, and that's my little motivation sometimes too. So I love the practice pets. Yes.
Right? I mean, they really do help. They really do help. So I actually pulled all the students, and her answer was just so adorable and really lovely. And so I thought I would share it.
What a great tip to think about this week. Are you having fun? Not all the time necessarily, but are you adding in a component of fun? And I'll share that I've been doing that a bit lately, inspired by a friend and colleague, Dr. Kara Eubanks. And maybe she'll come on and speak to us about this in the future. But she's really inspired me with all her ADHD joy posts that she's been sharing on her Instagram recently, practicing on balance boards of various kinds and on a trampoline, not jumping up and down in the air, but standing and shifting her weight on the different surface. My brain and just whole system finds this delightful to add into my practice. So I attest to the importance of having fun with music practice in one's own way, just for my own practice in the last month or so as well. And of course, I love Elizabeth's students' tip as well. And I think having a practice buddy, whether it's a parakeet or a cat or a dog or a stuffed animal, whatever form they take, having a practice buddy can be delightful and another way to add some fun and interest into our own practice. I will link to episode 67 in the show notes so that you can hear our whole conversation. That's all three of these interviews are worth listening to for the first time if you missed them the first time around, but even to revisit again if it's been a while. I would love to hear about your practice buddy at your house if you have one. And of course, if one of these tips really resonated with you today, I'd love to hear about that as well. And I'm happy to pass that on to any of our guests if you're not connected to them directly. As I think about gratitude this holiday season, I am immensely grateful for each one of you for being here, for each guest that joins us and shares their wisdom with us, and for our community here on the Time to Practice podcast. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling friends and colleagues about the show so it continues to be here and to grow. And thanks for all you do in your everyday life to support music and music learning, whether that's for yourself, for your own children, or the students you teach, and many other forms that could take in your own life. You are making a difference. And if no one has told you that recently in person, what you do really matters. There are people in your life that may not tell you in person, but who have been touched and whose lives have been changed because of music and because of your impact on their musical lives. So with lots of gratitude this week, take very good care, everyone.